So hello, Wings followers. Glad you could join us today. I'm Rebecca Darr, President and CEO of Wings, and I'm honored to have wonderful people in my presence today. I have Mr. Mark Wynn, who's here with me, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself and what he's doing, running around the country, talking to people about. We have Denise Brown, the sister of Nicole Brown Simpson, who is a wonderful activist, and both of these people will be speaking at our Domestic Violence Summit that is taking place tomorrow at the Union League Club. And we're really blessed to have our board chair, Ellaine Sambo-Reyther, who is the busiest person on the planet, found time for us today. And so it's always a great time to have her around. So, Mark, why don't you start and tell our audience who you are and what you do, and why are you coming to our summit tomorrow?
Well, you invited me. That's the first. That's
nice
that's the first thing. It's hard to say no, especially with Chicago. I mean, I've been doing this work for 47 years, and I'm a survivor. Grew up in a home filled with violence for 10 years. That's why I got into policing, because I, watched the police come to my house as a kid and didn't do anything for a family. I'm not mad at the police. I mean, I wanted to improve. That's what I dedicated my life to doing. But I've got a kind of a long history with Chicago. I mean, I came here in '88 by invitation of the Justice Department. We were helping the police department write policies on how to respond to the calls. That's been a while back. And then over the years, I've been here training police, the Housing Authority police, when they were a thing. They're not a thing anymore.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Those are gone.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It was a while back. And then off and on through the years, I've been up to train police for Ellaine Robinson, who was a DB coordinator at Chicago PD. Knew Terry Hillard real well, the chief. He was a good friend. And here recently, it took me 2 years, but I trained at all 22 police precincts. All 3 shifts. I did roll call training.
Wow.
It took me a while
That's
to
a lot,
do that.
yeah.
So I got to know the Chicago police really well. So when you asked me to come, I thought I'm more than happy, because I kind of stand in both sides. I do the law enforcement work, but I'm also consider myself an advocate. My wife and I started a nonprofit 25 years ago with the Mary Perry Center in Nashville. It's named after my mother. And it's transitional therapeutic domestic sexual violence program. Worked with about 10,000 victims since they opened up. And you all know with transitional, you really get the chance to watch miracles happen. It's like they walk in with a bag of clothes in a bag, and they walk out with a car and teeth and a scholarship and healthcare, and it's emergency shelters keep people alive. There's no question about that. I mean, you can't put a value on life, but if you've got the chance to do transitional long-term care, you go from survival to flourishing.
That's right.
That's what you do here.
That's what we see
Wynn.
at Wings.
So
we see
that's
a
why
97% success rate when you give them that.
No, that's
awesome.
just unbelievable. So and this is the other part of this, Rebecca. Is I tell, especially cops, I say, do you know what you started when you made the arrest or you got this person to shelter? And they don't, because they drive away, they never see him again. Right. It's a real shame that they don't come back and see the miracles that happen in places like Wings. And when you've got a number like that, that's something to brag about, because whatever you give to the program goes to keeping somebody alive and well and healthy for the rest of their lives. So,
right.
I mean, how could you not want to, contribute to that?
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So,
I agree too.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I didn't mean to go on and on.
No,
but it's just nice,
great.
because this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we should be doing more of this. I mean, every month should be
I agree.
Awareness Month.
365 days a year.
There you
Yes.
go. No, you're right.
Always.
I'm with you. Let's get it done. We'll go to Congress.
We'll go to Congress.
Yeah.
Denise, tell our audience what you've been up to for many, many years.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, it all started when my sister was murdered, and then I said one phrase, and all of a sudden everything kind of changed in my whole life. And that was at the criminal trial, and I said, if OJ's so innocent, why is he trying to suppress all the evidence? Well, that just threw me into a whole other spectrum of, okay, people started calling, shelters started calling, and I had to first learn about domestic violence, because I was the first one to say, no, Nicole's not a battered woman, because I didn't know, and then it just kind of fell into my lap, because I guess I had enough guts to get out there and say something when we had a gag order. So I thought, oh my God, okay, but I have to say this. I mean, it was just eating me up alive. And so when I did say that, I was like, oh my God, am I going to jail? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen? But anyhow, after that, I just started educating myself. I started going to the shelters, and the women and children in the shelters started educating me. I went to women's prisons. I went to men's prisons. I went to go see Mark in Nashville. That was in the 90s. Right after that happened. And so I've just been continuing speaking out and visiting shelters. And whenever I go someplace, I always want to see a shelter. Because I think it's so important for people to understand that these shelters are not just those, unfortunately there are some, but they're usually very homey, very nice. They're, you have your family with you, and they just learn how to live again and learn how to, to love and to live and to be a mom again or be a child again, in these organizations. And so, I mean, I've seen my share of little boys beating up pillows and tables and, sitting in corners. And then I've seen my share of little girls who sit there and they cower in the corner, because they're so scared. They don't know what's happening. And that just breaks my heart.
Mine too.
But yeah. So that is why we do what we do.
And that is why we have not just the shelter and the long-term housing, but we have a very robust children and family services program where children's advocates who are master's level clinicians are really helping the children not cower in the corner and not beat up the pillows, learn what to do with those feelings, and most importantly to learn that it wasn't their fault.
Yes.
Because most children think that they could have done something, should have done something to stop it, and we want them to know that they were powerless. Yeah. And we're giving them their power back, and we're giving their parent their power back. Ellaine, you've been involved with Wings for 15 out of my 25 years.
Yes. Oh, wow.
So tell our audience why. Why do you, because you give all your time for free, and you don't have a lot of free time to give. And we're on calls sometimes 10 o'clock at night.
Yes. Yes.
Catching up on
The other night, 2 a.m. with Nikki, by the way. But
you didn't leave Purple Tie Ball till 2 a.m.?
No, the night before.
Oh.
Getting ready for Purple Tie Ball. But yeah, this is so important. And to have you here, Mark and Denise, this means a lot because there's a mission here that we're trying to accomplish. And we work so hard, and we're moving at the fastest pace I've ever seen us move. And we have a bigger dent to make, right? Our job is not done. We have a lot of work to do. And when we have people like you, Mark and Denise, who can help advocate for us, help share our mission, right? And help us create our vision. How do we create more beds? How do we create more resources? That's really important. I think we're sadly a long ways away from accomplishing our mission of ending domestic violence. It's very sad to say and think that, but that's the reality. And the more people we have in our corner to help us, it allows Rebecca and I to move at a faster pace. I don't know if she can move any faster, but she can. I know she can. So that's really important. It is a time commitment, but I'll tell you, being chairman of the board, it's not about the numbers. It is about the numbers, but at the end of the day, when we have Purple Tie Ball the other night, where you hear any survivor story out there, right? It's not so much about the numbers. It's about how do we help them, and the numbers come behind that because we need to help them. So that's really why I do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
So both of you more recently, but still recent, have a documentary that was made on your life, which has won a national award. And recently in June, finally we get to hear Nicole's story instead of always hearing about him.
Yes.
I'm not going to say his name.
No.
So talk about that. I mean, what was it like for each of you to, I know in your documentary going back to the house where the abuse took place and, seeing a happy family there, not much different than our facility here where we have a playroom that used to be a cell block. But, both of you talk about how has that been for you in terms of affirming the work that you do, but sharing those stories with the world.
Well, for me, I wanted to do this like at the 20-year mark of Nicole's murder, and it didn't feel right. It was really weird. I mean, it just didn't feel right. And then at the 25 mark, and it was always the same woman that came to me, Denise. We want to hear Nicole's voice. Nobody remembers Nicole. We really want to hear Nicole's story. And at 25, I said, nah, it just doesn't feel right. And then at 30, she came to me again, and we've been friends over the years. And she goes, Denise, 30 years. She goes, let's get Nicole's voice out there. Let's tell people who Nicole really was. Let them see who Nicole really was. And then I asked my sisters, and I said, you guys, do you want to do a documentary about Nicole? And they both said yes. And we were doing it for the 30th.
And the time was right.
And the time felt right. Everything felt right about it. And people got to see, well, Lifetime did it, the documentary, The Life and Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. And the great thing is that we got to share like a lot of childhood photos of Nicole. We got to,
Those are so cute.
yeah, and then there were videos of Nicole with Sydney and Mommy made this blanket for you. Oh my God, I just thought, okay, tears started coming. But so people got to hear her voice.
Yeah.
Now there was some stuff in there, and I'm not going to say what that is, but there were things in there that shocked me. Things that I learned from all the other people that were actually in the documentary, because it wasn't just about Nicole. Because you got to remember, Nicole was 35 years old, and half of her life was with him.
Right.
And so, yes, he had to be a part of it. Yes, networks have to have the rest of it, a little bit of sensational stuff, but I mean, it was all real. It was all the reality. And they even went as far as to dig out the tape for the Violence Against Women Act. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my God, I was looking for it. I couldn't find it anywhere. So, I mean, I thought that was really important. So a lot of domestic violence stuff in there. But we got to humanize my sister.
Right.
And that was important. People got to see what type of mother she was. And I mean, it was all about the kids. I mean, her whole life was all about the kids. She got a Ferrari for her birthday, right? And when it went to get maintained, or the maintenance department, they said, there's French fries in your gear shift. I mean, literally, she didn't care about the car. It was all about the kids, So I wish we could have told more of those type of stories, but there were so many stories that ended up on the cutting room floor. But I mean, still, I think Lifetime did a great job. I loved it. I'm very proud of it. Yeah.
Denise, one of the things I remember, we followed the trial every day.
Yeah.
When I was a lieutenant with the police department in Nashville in our specialized DV unit, and we watched it every day because that's what we did. We worked these kind of cases. Right. And after the jury came in and gave the verdict, outside some of the jurors were being interviewed by the media, and this woman, I just seared in my memory, she said, domestic violence, this has nothing to do with domestic violence.
Yes.
And it all of us, and we were all seasoned detectives who worked a lot of domestic murder. We all looked at each other and said, this is what you call jury nullification. They just nullified this trial. They were out lawyered, and there was a lot of mistakes with this case.
Oh,
and it broke our hearts to see this happen. It was bad enough that you lose your sister, and then to lose this case, what an injustice this was. So we followed it carefully. Nobody will ever forget your sister. Don't worry about that, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Your story.
Oh.
Your document.
So the film producers, Sparkle out of New York, they did a Emmy award-winning documentary called Homestretch on homeless teens in Chicago. Well done, an unbelievable story. If you've never realized it, how many kids in this city and a lot of big cities are out on the street and actually going to school every day.
Yeah.
It's really unbelievable. And they did a documentary on that. And they've done a few other social issue documentaries. And I was in Virginia doing a training. I train all over the country, and they called me and said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm just a cop trainer, but I try to do more. I try to get men to wake up and get involved." And so they came down to Loudoun County, Virginia, and they said, we want to watch you train because I do full day trainings. I said, yeah, I said, sure. So after the training, they said, who does this? And I said, well, there's a few people who do this. I said, we want to film it. I said, for what? They said, we want to do a documentary. I said, oh, okay. So I thought it was like a film about men.
Well, you are one.
Yeah, I was just like another character. Yeah, okay, I'll be, yeah, sure, I'll help out. And then after 5 years following me around, they said, this is about you. Because every time I would ask them, the documentary people are not like us. They have a vision, you know, that nobody else can see. And every day after we do a thing, I said, what's this going to be about? And they would just laugh, and they would never say, they would laugh, but they wouldn't tell me. So I had to wonder. And then they came to Nashville and got a chance to see my wife, Valerie, who I lost a few years ago with ovarian cancer, who was my partner, and we trained together, and we started this nonprofit together. We worked together at the police department. We actually, interesting story, I wrote a federal grant through the Office of Violence Against Women for a psychologist, a therapist for the police department, and she took the job.
Oh.
And I'd never been married. I was a late in life guy, you know, I was working, so I didn't have time for that. Anyway, so we hired her, and the HR person brought her in, introduced me, said, this is Valerie, she's our new therapist for the police department. And I saw her and I thought, oh my God. It's like you say, when love hits you, it's like, you know, if you hits, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is her. Yeah, and so, you know, we courted for a while, and then we were engaged for a while, and then we got married, and then we worked together and at the police department. So that was really nice because she worked with child sex abuse victims for years before she was at the police department. So she'd bring these kids in for me to talk to. Well, and I'm not a therapist, but you know, kids are afraid of police.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is one of the things when I talk to cops today, I say, just think about how big you are, you know, when you go in, they're scared and they're hiding and they think you're going to hurt them. And so we did a lot of that. So these were all really precious, you know, moments. But anyway, so the film rolled out, and like you said, I grew up in Texas, but I'm a Tennessean, so I've got dual citizenship. And they came out to Texas. I was doing a thing in Dallas, and they said, what city I grew up in, and said, well, we'll take you for a ride. So I was okay. So we rode out to a suburb of Dallas, Lancaster, one of the cities we lived in when I was growing up for 10 years as a child, to the house that we lived in, that we ran from, with nothing but the clothes on our back. They pulled up. I had to tell you, I've done some scary things as a cop. But I was kind of, you know, speechless, and I didn't know exactly what to say, because, you know, men are bad at this, you know, walking back into your trauma is not an easy thing to do.
Not for anyone.
And especially walking back into the place where you've got a lot of trauma was a whole other. So I took a deep breath and went in, and that's when I walked into the house. I said, this is where I learned not to sleep. And at the time, they didn't have a title for the film, and that's what it was, because when you're growing up in violence, you ask any survivor, any child that walks in this door, they'll tell you, you don't sleep, really. I mean, you're there, and you try to sleep, you're hyper-vigilant. In the film, I talked about going to school but never listening to the school teachers, worrying about 3 o'clock, worried about my mother, and then the helplessness of it all, watching her work 2 jobs, 5 children, alcoholic husband, 2 miscarriages, beaten into 2 miscarriages, thrown out of a speeding car late one night, hospital after hospital after hospital, over and over again. So your childhood's gone, so you're an adult now. So my brother, in the film, I talk about my brother and I, we tried to kill him. My brother was 5 years older than me, and we tried to poison him with insecticide in his wine bottle. Didn't work, thank goodness. And he survived, and my brother ran away to Vietnam to get out of the house. My sisters left in a hurry, and then my mother and I ran with the clothes on our back from that house you saw in the film. I got into policing, and then I brought all that experience with me, and then as I talk about in the film, I saw the problem with the culture in policing, not understanding domestic and sexual violence. And that was my mission, to do something to change that in my city, my police department, And as I got more confident, I worked in homicide for years, and I don't mean to be too graphic here, but you know, when you survive these kind of crimes and you work in policing, you've got a lot of survivors on the Chicago Police Department, by the way. You cannot help but see yourself in the faces of the people who you serve, you know, especially the homicide victims that I work with and their parents and their families. And I had a woman who'd been murdered one day, and we caught the boyfriend, and delivering a death notice is just such a hard thing to do. So I went to the family and I told the mother that her daughter had been murdered. We had him under arrest and we were going to prosecute him, and she fell apart. I mean, she just, you know, just completely melted in her husband's arms there in this house. And I've done that a lot over the years. Anyway, and after she gathered herself, she said, she called you over and over again. I said, ma'am, I have no idea what you're talking about. She said, no, I'm telling you, she called you over and over again, and you did nothing for her. She said she'd probably be alive if she had not called you. And I apologized, and I left. I went back to work, and I walked in my boss's office, and I had the reports where she reported, and all the reports. She said, he's going to kill me, he's going to kill me. And I handed it to my boss, and I said, I want to talk to you about this. And he said, what do you want to talk about? And I said, when are we going to stop burying 25 or 30 women every single year in this city and start preventing murder? And he's a great guy, but he said, Mark, we don't do prevention work here. We're homicide. And I said, I got it.
You want to be out of business is what you want to be.
So that was my goal, put him out of business. So I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. It took 10 years, and finally we were able to get our chief to build the largest police domestic violence unit in U.S. history. 40 total personnel, a captain, lieutenant, 3 sergeants, 20 detectives, 6 master level crisis counselors, and we took our homicide rate from 25 or 30 down to about 5 in about 4.5 years. So we proved everybody wrong that you cannot prevent murder.
You can totally prevent
Right.
murder.
That is part of the film. That sort of, you know, living in a you know, small alley apartment in South Dallas as a kid, afraid of the police and living with a criminal, and then eventually helping build a police unit, which was the foundation for our Family Safety Center, which is the largest family justice center in the country. So you never know in programs like this, these kids who are here might one day be the commissioner of the police of Chicago, or the mayor, or your congressman or president like Bill Clinton, who was a survivor.
Right.
So that's sort of my story. And we're showing it around the country, a lot in Illinois, by the way, and we're getting men to stand up and say, that's my story. That's what I wanted to see, because women can't stop this.
No,
If women could stop it, we wouldn't have a building like this.
that's exactly
That's the problem. We gotta have to have men engaged.
We do.
So the film is engaging men in the conversation. I didn't mean to give you a long answer to a short question, but it's been interesting. I've been so lucky. I've trained in every state. I'm a Fulbright specialist for the State Department, which I go to other countries and train their police and judges and prosecutors. So I've been so lucky to see this crime on all different levels, but my work's not done yet. And so that's why I was so excited when you invited me to come.
Well, and Chicago is in what I would say severe crisis relative to helping the police get trained, helping judges get trained, and that's why the summit that we're doing tomorrow is so critical, and your voice so powerful, in that we will have a room full of lawyers, judges, just community people who want to know more, a full day with different panels talking about the law enforcement response, the healthcare response. What are we doing well in Chicago? What are we not doing well in Chicago? And I appreciate my board member, John Chakota, who is now the president of the Chicago Bar Association. This was his idea. He's pulled in all of the other bar associations. We have the Illinois Bar, the Women's Bar, the Men's Bar.
That's awesome.
The list just goes on, and I'm grateful to the sponsors. Just can't thank you both enough for accepting my invitation and coming to town and spending time with us here at Wings. We are very proud of the work that we do. Our staff work very, very hard, and we are blessed to have a great board of directors and donors and volunteers that support the work that they do. But it's really you, as Ellaine said, you're amplifying the voices of all those survivors who didn't make it. And it's our goal in Chicago, all of us in working in the space, the network advocating against domestic violence, it is our goal to make Chicago the best safety net in the country. Our goal is 0 homicides. And I think together we can get there. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our staff person who does social media